Lions schedule. Again, big brand in the NFL. Yeah, deep down, I think they want the Bills and the Lions in the Super Bowl. I think it would get it because it's like the two teams in America. It'd be impossible not to root for. Look at the Lions schedule. Where are their two toughest games? Week 16 or 17 and 18 at the Bears and at the Packers. Very workable games. I mean, they give them the Bills early. They surround them with the Saints and Jets at home. The NFL doesn't just do ping pong balls. Oh, the games landed where they landed. It doesn't work that way.
All right. So I'm processing everything in sequence. Right now, every video you're watching, I'm seeing these schedules for the very first time live. And before the schedule dropped, I was definitely minimizing the whole strength of schedule discussion and all that. I still firmly stand by that position. And one of the points I kept making was that because there's so much parity and clustering in the league right now, the difference between an easy schedule and a hard schedule is actually pretty slim. But this particular schedule? It's absolutely fantastic. This definitely runs counter to what I was saying. If you're a Detroit Lions fan looking at this slate of games, you should be drooling right now. You should be amped up. This is Dan Campbell's team. You should be ready to sprint through a brick wall at this very moment. I feel like running through a wall myself. You cannot tell me otherwise. I'm literally tensing up my body because I'm thinking, oh man. This is really something. Yeah. I'm just completely ready to go after it. Totally ready to attack. They brought in a new offensive coordinator. If he can instill some structure into this offense, and if the defense can remain healthy and not become a liability, the Detroit Lions are going to win a ton of games. They will absolutely, positively be in a position to take the division and secure a top seed in the NFC. No question about it. None whatsoever. This schedule, combined with something I've been saying repeatedly, and I feel a little bad about repeating it, but it keeps being relevant, is that Raquan's point about not needing to be great everywhere, but you simply cannot be bad anywhere. If we apply that logic to the Detroit Lions and pair it with this schedule, boom, boom. Then you are absolutely, positively right there in the conversation to win big. Because I also mentioned before that I wasn't sure we'd actually see many teams with 14 or 15 wins, since I think everything is going to be so hotly contested and so tightly packed. But this is an exception. This is truly an outlier, right? This is a team that is absolutely, positively in a position to rack up those 14 or 15 victories. And let me put it this way, if you told me that Ben Johnson was still the coordinator, and that our offense was back to being exactly what it was, and our defense, again, was not going to be a weak link, then I would go all in. I would say, okay, my pick to secure the number 1 seed? That's the Detroit Lions. It's being handed to them on a silver platter right now. This is such a favorable schedule. It really, truly is. So yeah. I mean, even a team like the Saints, who I actually think will be considerably better than they've been in recent years, I really like what Kellen Moore and Todd Wash are building over there. But week 1? Even if the Saints are completely ready to break out, it's week 1. The Detroit Lions are the team with all the continuity. They're the group with all the experience and veteran leadership. Even if New Orleans is poised to pop, I believe there's real potential there, but in week 1, the Lions should be the ones leaning on them. They should be the ones who can break them, even in a tough, grinded-out game, right? Then you've got the Bills, who are going to be the Bills as always. Then you face the Jets. The Panthers are also going to be really, really intriguing to me, by the way. And then, when you go through the divisional matchups, the NFC North games are always going to be a little chaotic, which I'm completely fine with. But the Detroit Lions have definitely had a front-row seat to that divisional chaos over the years. So who can predict how those games will unfold? I'm certainly not even going to pretend to know what that will look like. But then you've got a team like the Patriots, the Buccaneers, the Falcons, the Titans, and the Giants. Yeah, man. I don't mean to sound cheesy, but that is like a lion getting ready to pounce on its prey. It really is. Yeah. This is the schedule, man. This is the schedule. And like I said all week, I've been downplaying strength of schedule, and I do stand by that. I really do. But sometimes there are exceptions, and to me, this is an exception. Now, I will say this, though, at the end of the day, and this is what I've always said about scheduling, if you're truly a great team, if you're truly a special group, if you're genuinely a Super Bowl contender, then the schedule itself matters less, unless it can help you secure the number 1 seed and home field advantage. Because that is a major advantage. But if you're only artificially elevated because of a weak schedule, then it doesn't ultimately matter, because either you can win in the playoffs or you can't, right? Either you can beat the Washington Commanders or you can't. Either you can beat the San Francisco 49ers or you can't. You're either good enough to beat them or you're not. You're either good enough to beat the Bears, the Eagles, whoever. So that's why I think sometimes we put too much emphasis on strength of schedule. It really depends on the circumstances. Unless you're a team where you're talking about something like, and here's a made-up scale, the NFL is filled with teams ranking from 1 to 10, 10 being the best. Right now the league is full of lots of 8s and 9s. Let's just invent this for argument's sake, say the Bears are a 9 and the Lions are an 8. The Eagles are an 8, the Rams are a 9, and so on. Everyone is really close. Some teams are marginally better than others, blah blah blah. But with a strength of schedule like this, you can now leverage that and grab the number 1 seed. That puts you in a fantastic position where you're saying, we're already in the divisional round. We don't have to deal with the wildcard round. That's on you guys. Now the Bears and the Rams have to fight each other just for the right to come play you at your place. That does create a significant advantage. But at the end of the day, you're either going to beat the Rams, beat the Bears, beat the Eagles, whoever, or you're not. So that's where I think this type of conversation is slightly more complex and a little deeper than we usually give it credit for. But yeah, as you can see, I've been smiling through this entire video because this is a juicy schedule, man. This is a really, really, really juicy schedule. I cannot deny that or downplay it. But again, I don't know, because Colin keeps saying the NFL is doing these things on purpose. Some teams are being punished, some teams are being protected. That's how he's choosing to view the schedule release right now, and I find it fascinating. I'm not going to go on a whole rant about protection versus punishment, because I've already done that in my other schedule reaction videos, and I feel bad repeating it over and over. But yeah, because Colin said back in 2024 that he wanted to see the Bills and the Lions in the Super Bowl. He said that would be an amazing championship matchup, and so on. And that was the year we actually got the Eagles and the Chiefs, which ended up being the most watched Super Bowl of all time. Personally, I would struggle with a Bills-Lions Super Bowl, because I would want to see both franchises win. I would want both of them to finally get a championship, and I would feel genuinely crushed for whichever one lost. That would be such a downer, right? One franchise gets their moment, and the other becomes the team that came up short. So for me, it would be a win-win in a sense, because I believe in both teams. I'd be like, either way, I can't really lose. But I would still struggle with, well, who do I actually root for? It would be a tough one. But this schedule is absolutely set up for the Lions to return to the top of the NFL. And again, most of the conversation will be, well, are they really that good, or is it just the schedule? And we'll have those kinds of discussions, which is fine. And you do have enough barometer games, like against the Bills. Obviously your own division alone is barometer central right there. But outside of that, there aren't really any other measuring stick games. It's really just the division, and using division games as barometers is always a little bit trickier. So your best barometer game is the Bills, and that's in week 2. So if we're trying to figure out who the Bills are, or who the Lions are for that matter, I honestly only care about how you really look in weeks 13, 14, 15, and 16. Even if you got blown out by the Bills, or you blew them out, I'd say, well, that was week 2. Yeah, that was week 2. That was ages ago. The Bills are a completely different team by the end of the year. The Lions are a completely different team. So-and-so wasn't fully locked in yet, and so on. So it's actually going to be kind of tricky to evaluate just how great the Lions are going to be, because like I said, all the barometer games are within the division, and the one true non-division barometer game you have is week 2. Technically, we could say week 10 against the Patriots. We'll see how much of a measuring stick game that actually turns out to be, either at that time or just in general. I don't mean to me as if I'm the official judge of barometer games or anything, but I do like to focus on the matchups that I genuinely care about and really use to evaluate how good a team is. You know, when you're actually going up against a great defense, a great offense, a great coach, whatever it might be, and it's like, how does this game unfold? And it's not just a matter of winning or losing, or blowing someone out or getting crushed. It's really about how the game unfolded, minute by minute. And the ultimate example of the ultimate barometer is the Bills in week 2, which, by the time it's week 9 or week 10, I honestly just don't care about that game anymore. So yeah. I'm telling you right now, the conversations around the Lions are going to be fascinating. The discussions about the Detroit Lions are going to be absolutely fascinating, because it's going to be really hard for people to make up their minds about how great they actually are. And if they're not winning a lot of games, then it's an absolute disaster. Mayday, mayday, mayday. And then it's going to be, Dan Campbell's on the hot seat. It's time for you guys to admit that Ben Johnson was the real brains behind this operation. Dan Campbell is just a motivational speaker, a walk-around guy. I love him, he's great, but he can't be the long-term answer. Right? We'll have all those types of conversations. Then we'll be looking at other random offensive coordinators and asking, should they bring in Mike McDaniel to Detroit? Or Brian Daboll? And either way, right? If they're winning, it's going to be a lot of, well, how good are they really? And if they're losing, it's going to be absolute mayday, mayday, mayday. This is a disaster. Where did things go wrong? Time to move on from Jared Goff. Time to fire Dan Campbell. I just don't see any middle ground, personally. I don't see anything in between. So yeah. Yeah, this is the first schedule that actually got me really fired up. I was like, okay, baby. Let's go. Let's do this. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Detroit Lions and their schedule? Do you think they're being protected by the NFL like Colin is saying? Anyone who has an easy schedule, Colin claims they're being protected, especially if they're a big market brand. And if you have a tough schedule, he's essentially saying, the NFL is kind of leaning on you right now. So let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Get into some arguments. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. Erie building an amazing community here. I would absolutely love to see you be part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing that. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.